Hey you, how's it going? Cheers, friend. Clink. It's my birthday today. It is about 3 o'clock in the morning, witching hour. I am now a 35-year-old lady. My husband surprised me with some bona fide champagne, which I love. We will be having champagne for this video. I'm very excited tonight because I'm gonna be sharing with you my entire Stephen King collection. I have many books. Many books. Oh, and actually this shirt is sort of an homage to Stephen King. When he was on Eli Roth's History of Horror, he was wearing it, or a version of it, and I absolutely loved it. And so I went online and I found it at tshirthell.com, I think, which has a variety of obscene t-shirts, but I love this one. It says, "You can't have manslaughter without laughter." I was worried that would happen. God damn it. All right, let me bring it back. Okay, let's try this again. Anywho, Stephen King is my favorite author. I absolutely love his stories. He's amazing, and I actually got into him and horror in general because of my mother. Being a tiny little girl, I remember seeing Stephen King's books on her bookshelf, and I remember her reading and falling asleep on the couch and waking up and reading some more. When I was a teenager, she gifted me some of her books, so some of the ones that I have here are some that my mother gave to me. I have 44 books total, including a couple audiobooks. And I think as of now, September 2019, Stephen King has written about 61. All of my books are well loved, beat up. They almost all come from half-price books or somewhere similar. These here are my favorite Stephen King books. So let's start with these two books. This is The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon and Rose Madder. These were two of the books that were given to me by my mother, and they were pretty much my introduction to Stephen King. They're just so nostalgic for me. I've read both of these multiple times. The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon is awesome. It's probably his shortest book, if I'm not mistaken. It's written from the perspective of a 9-year-old girl, Trisha McFarlane, and she gets lost in the woods. It has some supernatural elements in it. Parts are horrifying. I laughed hard at other parts. I don't know. It's a really good book, and I highly recommend it if you're new to Stephen King. Rose Madder. Now, this book is dark, but I love it. Starts off with kind of a horrible scene. It has to do with domestic abuse and madness. It has a few twists and turns. It's also hilarious at times. I don't know. I love it. So yeah, if you're looking for like an easy start to Stephen King, I highly recommend The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon. If you're looking for a very good read, but something quite a bit darker, you could start with Rose Madder, like I did. They just hold a special place in my heart. Gerald's Game. When I first read this, I read it in 2 days. I started on a Monday afternoon and finished on a Tuesday night. I could not put it down. It was so damn good. You may have heard of the Netflix adaptation, which was pretty good. It was basically nothing like the book, but you couldn't really make this book into a movie. Throughout most of the book, you're in Jessie, the main character's head, and she's just thinking all these things, and you can't really make a movie with somebody handcuffed to a bed just thinking. You have to have something else in there, so good book. Insomnia. I really like this book. I've read it 3 times, I think, and it's from the perspective of an older gentleman named Ralph. A lot of the things that Stephen King writes about include loss and grief. That is definitely a theme in this book. Oh hey, there are a few parts of this video where I wish I would have worded things a little better. That's why I'll be popping in here and there to do that. I was talking about insomnia. It also deals with finding a new purpose and falling in love again, and the whole good and evil battle with a whole bunch of mystical, magical things happening throughout, and it's kind of all over the place. It's kind of a mess, but I still enjoyed it. still one of my favorites. Another favorite, Duma Key. This is such a good book. It's a little dismal. It's sad, but it's also very exciting. It's also haunting. I really liked it. It was like a supernatural, sad adventure. I don't know. I've read this 3 or 4 times. And my very favorite Stephen King book, Lisi's Story. This book makes me feel all the things. I've read it, I don't know, 5 or 6 times, including a few audiobook passes, which we'll get to in a second. I think this is probably one that reflects closest on Stephen King and his own relationship with his own wife. Lisi is a widow. The book starts off with her husband, renowned writer Scott Landon, being deceased 2 years. I think the first and probably second times that I've read it, I cried. I bawled. How do I describe this book? It deals with love, loss, grief, the sister thing. Of course, it does have a supernatural element with a bit of horror mixed in there. Stephen King was on Colbert the other night and mentioned that they are doing an adaptation of this. And I was so excited when I heard it. I got goosebumps and I got like teary-eyed. And I believe Apple won the bidding war to produce the series. I did read that Stephen King is supposed to be executive producing and writing all 8 episodes of the series. So that means it's gonna be amazing, right? Let us now discuss the audiobook for Lisi's Story. How do I say this? I really liked the woman's voice who narrated it, but the way she read it really took away from the story for me. She mispronounced so many words and names. The last name, Guzman, she pronounced Guzman. Another one was Forte. She pronounced it Fort. There were context clues. That's all I'm saying. But the thing that she did that drove me the craziest, her voices. There are 3 main antagonists in this book, and when she did the voices for them, it was so ridiculous. One of these characters was like babbling crazy talk, and the line was like, I gotta end all this ding dong for the Fresias, right? It's gibberish. And I always imagined it as him saying it really low, like, I gotta end all this ding dong for the Fresias, like just kind of like mumbling all this madness. But the way she read it was like, I gotta end all this ding dong for the Fresias, in this dumb voice. I don't know. I try not to be mean, and I was like, why? Why are you doing that? And then the other 2 antagonists had a very similar thing done to them. The way she would do it would be like, and I hated it. It was terrible. Anyway, so I would recommend that if you're gonna experience this, you read it from the book. And hopefully the series will be awesome too. I can't wait. This is The Dead Zone and Firestarter, 2 much older books. They're both pretty good. I have read The Dead Zone twice and I cannot remember much about it, so pretty good. Desperation and The Dark Half. These books, they kind of have the same sort of mouthfeel, you know? I've read The Dark Half once. It's been at least a decade since I've read it. I've forgotten quite a bit of it. I remember liking The Dark Half and Desperation. Desperation I've read a couple times. It's really good, one of his older books. It relates very closely to the Dark Tower series. This here is my Dark Tower series. I have all the books. I have read all the books. They're pretty awesome. I really like the series. It's not my favorite epic collection, but it's pretty damn good anyway. So I have all of them, 1 through 7, and then The Wind Through the Keyhole, which is kind of like an 8th Dark Tower novel. If I remember correctly, it goes back to when Roland was younger and tells a little bit about his earlier years. What else? What do I have over here? Ooh, let's see. Here I have all my anthologies, all of Stephen King's short stories. Actually, I take it back, this is not a Stephen King book. I'll tell you about that one in a second. These are, wait a minute. There, these are the anthologies. Everything's Eventual, Different Seasons, Just After Sunset, Full Dark No Stars, and Bazaar of Bad Dreams. I've read them all except The Bazaar of Bad Dreams. It's one of my newest Stephen King books, and I really haven't had a chance to dig in. This book is called I Shudder at Your Touch, and it's 22 Tales of Sex and Horror, edited by Michael Slung. There is a Stephen King story in here that I have never seen anywhere else, and it's called The Revelations of Becca Paulson. I often take the book jackets off and just keep them like this, but I do save them all, of course. And this is what the book jacket actually looks like. It's really good. It is about a woman named Becca Paulson, and I don't want to tell you what happens. Let me just read you the first sentence. What happened was simple enough, at least at the start. What happened was that Rebecca Paulson shot herself in the head with her husband Joe's .22 caliber pistol. Really good story. Next I have Cell, which did not get good reviews. A lot of people kind of hated it. I think it started off great. All the action is right up front. It's kind of a bit of an apocalyptic sort of thing. I don't know, I liked it. It's not one that I go back to very often at all. Dr. Sleep, the sequel to The Shining. You may have seen the very recent preview for the new Dr. Sleep movie coming out, which I think is going to be pretty good. I read this the year it came out. Steven actually got it for me for my birthday. We had just met, he was my downstairs neighbor, and we had just started kind of hanging out. He got me a little basket of things, including this book. He left the basket in front of my front door so that I got it when I got home from work that evening. And I thought it was so damn sweet. This was Stephen King's new book at the time, and it's a good book. I really like it. This is Finders Keepers, also a really good book. I've read it once. Of course, I don't remember a whole hell of a lot. I need to read it again. But this is another one with a cool book jacket. Nice and bloody tree. Reading this, I'm like, oh yeah, it sounds so familiar, but I can't remember. These four are next. We're gonna go through them very fast. These bottom three were the other ones that were given to me by my mother when I was a teenager. I haven't actually read Storm of the Century because it's a screenplay. Of course, I've always kept it. I love the cover. It's a beautiful cover. I don't like reading screenplays, so that's the only reason I've never actually read that. But I have watched the movie, and it's a good movie. It's a good story. I like it. Bag of Bones. I remember it's very sad, and there are some parts that I think are very slow and kind of drag on, and there are some horrific parts in here. This one also deals with love and loss and grief, but it's good. It's a good book. It's been probably over 10 years since I've read this book. Under the Dome, another really good book. I loved this book. It's enormous. It is almost 1,000 pages. I could not really get into the TV series. It didn't click with me. Maybe I'll try watching it again, but I will definitely read it again. It was great. These are my Stephen King books that I have not read yet. I started the Tommyknockers earlier this year, so I'm about that far in, and I'm liking it so far. This one has a really nice old smell. Dan's Macabre I have not read. I got it at the same time I bought the Tommyknockers. This is one of his older stories, so I'm looking forward to this. Christine, I have not actually seen the movie, so I am looking forward to this one as well. 11/22/63. Everyone that I've heard talk about this book says it is phenomenal, so I'm looking forward to checking this one out as well. Next I have Dolores Claiborne, which is a really good book. I'm pretty sure there was a movie which I've seen that was alright, but the book is really, really good, and it actually ties in very closely with Gerald's Game. The same eclipse is in both of these books. This video is really making me want to reread so many of my favorite Stephen King books. Here it is. It is a great book. I would not recommend this for a beginner. It's over 1,000 pages. It's a very big book, but it's good. I loved the 2017 movie. It was one of the best Stephen King adaptations ever. It was so good, so bloody. It was so good. It didn't scare me. I wasn't scared, but it was still scary, if that makes any sense. I have not seen It 2. Actually, by the time this video is posted, I probably will have seen it. Yep. Here we have Salem's Lot, the book my little creature is named after, and it is a great book. This book was actually scary. This featured a vampire that was not sexy, not sparkly. The vampire in this book was similar in my head to Nosferatu. Next is Dreamcatcher. A lot of people shat all over this book. A lot of people hate this book, they hate the movie, but you know, I remember really liking this book. I liked it. I think the movie was terrible, but the book is really good. I don't remember what the hell happens. I just remember really being on the edge of my seat during certain parts, and it was like blah, 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 blah. The Long Walk. I've read this twice, I believe, and this one's good. This is about a kid who goes on a very long walk. I want to read this one again too. The Shining. I actually have not read this book. I've seen both movies, hated Stanley Kubrick's version. I really like the version with Steven Weber. I don't even know the director's name. I'm very sorry to. I'm planning to give this a read before the year is out for sure. The Stand, super epic book, over 1,000 pages. It's another one that sort of ties into The Dark Tower. Randall Flagg, he's the same bad son of a bitch. He's very wicked. It probably falls in the decade ago category. This one, I'm pretty sure I got from my mom as well. And last and least, I have Hearts in Atlantis. This is the only Stephen King book that I own that I didn't like. I don't really remember what happened. I've heard the movie's pretty good, but I've never seen it. But who cares? So that is my Stephen King collection. I hope you enjoyed hanging out with me and seeing all my books. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already to come back and hang out. Let me know if there's anything in particular you would like to see, but I have a lot of fun stuff coming up. A lot of you guys were asking me in my last video, my painted black video, for more DIYs. So I hear you. I got you. I've got it on the way. I'll see you soon. Bye.